Kay and I have been sailing around using this dock line that we got with the boat. It's typical 3-strand dock line. It's really old and frayed, and we've gotten to the point where we don't trust it anymore. So today we bought this new dock line. It's a double-braided dock line. It's about the same thickness as the previous dock line, 16 millimeters. We bought 26 meters cut in half, and they've melted all the ends for us. But what I need to do is to braid a loop in it. Now this is 3-stranded line, and this is double-braided line, so you can't do this type of braiding with this type of rope. What you have to do is splice it. Here's the finished product. That's what we're going for. We've done one of the 2 dock lines already. It's got a black outer sheath that's braided and a white braided core. We bought it in bulk. It's the same length as our boat. Our boat is 13 meters, and so we bought 2 pieces of 13-meter dock line. We need to make a loop in it so we can loop it around the cleats on our boat. But the idea is that you take the tag end, which is the single end, you make a loop and you feed it inside of itself like this, and inside this outer sheath now is a splice between the outer sheath and the inner core. That's the idea. I'm going to show you the steps how to do this now. For equipment, I have the dock line. I have a small cutting board. I have some electrical tape, a pair of scissors, a tiny screwdriver, a Sharpie in black, a Sharpie permanent marker in silver, a lighter, a small measuring tape, a fid set, and I'll explain that in a second, and a sharp knife. For the fid set, I have a fid set made by Selma in Norway. And if you're unfamiliar with what fids are, they look like this. They're stainless steel kind of tubes that kind of look like a needle also. These are great working with Dyneema and other ropes. Today we're going to use what's my size number 13 and size number 10. And it's about 3/4 of an inch and a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to use these 2. So a couple other things I have to do before I started. I measured our cleat. The cleat is around 33, 34 centimeters long. So store that information away. And the tag end of our line has been melted, so I have to fix that. I'm going to cut off the end and re-tape it so that it's loose. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the fid and measure 1 fid length and mark the dock line with my silver Sharpie. That's the first mark on the outside. Then I'm going to make another mark where the length of my loop is. I have say a 34 centimeter cleat that it has to go over. I don't need the loop to be 34 centimeters. I need it to be roughly 30. I'm going to measure the loop to be 30 centimeters. From the first fid length, which is under my pointer finger here, I measured 30 centimeters to this point, and adjacent to the first mark that I made, I'm going to make another mark. Okay, the next step, I'm going to measure 5 fid lengths from my second mark. So there's 1, so 5 fid lengths past that, I'm going to make a knot in the rope that I can pull against. So the knot of the slip knot is on the end that I'm working on. I'm working on this piece of the dock line. This piece of the dock line has the slip knot on it, so I can pull against it. And that's just to keep the braided exterior and the braided core together. That's the whole purpose of this. Okay, to recap, we have an eye or a loop. So we have a fid length mark. We have an eye, or how big the loop is. At the second mark, I'm going to take the line and just work it so that these braids open up a little bit. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is try to separate the braids so that I can see the inner core. I'm just going to pull back the braids a little bit so that you can see that inner braided core. The next thing I'm going to do is go fishing for it with my little screwdriver. I'm going to pull out the entire inner core. And once you have it, it starts to come out pretty easy. So we have the inner core starting to come out of our tag end. So you can see the inner braided core here. I'm going to pull on it from the tag end. I'm going to pull out the entire inner core. It comes out like that. Then I'm going to tape it up securely. I'm taping it up so the braids don't come apart yet. The next thing I need to do is make the inner core and the outer braided sheath have equal amount of tension to them. Take both tag ends, put them off to the side. I grab the knotted end of this and I start to pull. And this is called milking the braided rope. And you'll start to see that the inner braided core becomes longer than the outer sheath. So I'm going to do that a couple times. Once you're confident that the tension between the inner core and the outer braid are the same, and again we do that by continuously milking the line, we're going to take this junction between the outer braid and the inner core, and I'm going to make a mark with my permanent marker on the inner core. So just a black mark there. This is simply a mark of where the inner core comes out through the sheath. Okay, we have our first mark where the inner core comes out of the outer cover. We're going to pull out some more core and make 2 more marks. The second mark we're going to make is what's called a short fid length. I think of it as just a little shorter than half of fid. So here's my half fid mark. I just took about another inch or a little short of 30 millimeters, and I'm going to make another mark there. Some fids might have a short fid length mark on them. Mine does not. So I made up my own short fid length. It's right there. So here's my first mark. There's half a fid. There's a short fid length, according to me. So I'm going to make another mark there. From this short fid length, I'm going to do another mark that is 1.5 fids from the short mark. So there's 1, and I have a half marked here. I'll make another mark. Okay, so I have 3 marks on this inner core. I have a mark where the core comes out of the cover, then a short fid length, and then 1.5 fid lengths. So 3 different marks. The next step is we need to taper the end of the cover. How you make the taper is pretty simple. We have the cover, we have the tag end of the cover, we have our first mark in the cover. Right next to that, I'm just going to take my small screwdriver again. About 1 inch towards the tag end of this mark, which is about right here, I'm going to grab a pair of braids, and we're just going to separate them from the rest of the cover and pull them out like this. And I'm going to end up doing 5 of these, but not all in the same place. I'm going to start with 2 down in this area. So now I have 2 pairs out about 1 inch from my first mark. I'm going to go up about another inch, roll the cover over a little bit, find another pair, separate another pair of threads, go up another inch. So now I have 5 pairs of outer cover that I've taken off. The next thing I'm going to do is just cut them off with a pair of scissors. The next step that I like to do is retape the cover's tag end so that it's nice and tight, because you've now removed the core and it's a little bit loose. So I go back and retape it tight. We're going to take this cover and put it inside of the core now. So this is part of our interlocking process. For this step, I'm going to use my number 10 fid, or the smaller of the 2 fids that I have. Here's where it gets really interesting and kind of fun. You're going to take the tag end of the cover, find the second mark of the core, and we're going to insert the cover at the second mark and run it down and out at the third mark. So this is going to make the loop in our rope. I'm going to take my number 10 fid and the tag end of the cover, insert the cover as best I can into the fid, squish it down so that it sits into the fid fairly well, take the core, fluff it up a little bit, insert the fid into the core, and run it down the core, making sure that I don't snag any of these fibers on the way down. And again, I want to come out at the third mark. So we're going to do this in fast forward. And it works best if you can pull the core towards the fid rather than shoving the fid down the core. I can take the bottom of my fid, put it against the cutting board, and just push down really good to give me a head start on pulling this outer cover into the core. And then I just want to work it through. Now that I have the outer cover inside the core, comes out again, I'm going to tie a knot in the end of this cover so that it can't come back out. This is what we have so far. We have a knot that's 5 fid lengths away from the end. We have a knot in the cover that's coming out of the core, and we have the tag end of the core. We still have a first mark on the core that we haven't done anything with. We have a tag end of the core. It needs to go back inside the cover. On the cover, we made a very first mark. And to see mine, I had to pull this bit of core that's over the top of the cover back so I could see it again. I'm going to take the tag end with a fid, feed it back into the cover. It's going to go all the way down past the Y junction up in here somewhere and come out again. I'm going to use my number 13 fid for this step. And I'm feeding the fid as far as it will go. Because I need a really giant loop, I can't feed this all the way as far as I need to right now. So what I'm going to do is just get it started. I'm going to put the tag end of the core inside the fid and just start to feed it towards the Y. If you need more room, just pull more core out. I have the tip of the fid at the Y. I'm going to keep going just a little bit further. I'm going to go about roughly half a fid past this Y junction and pop the fid out. And then take the core out. So now I have the core coming out below the Y junction, about half a fid length, and I'm going to pull all the core tight. So now the core and the cover are tight against each other at this point. I have a lot of core coming out just past the Y junction. So that's where we are now. Where this junction is, I'm going to pinch, firmly pinch, and I'm going to stretch this line down so that we have our maximum amount of distance and usage of this piece of core, because we're going to cut this extra core off at this piece. I want to make sure I have as much core as I need. So again, at the junction, I'm going to pinch off and then start stretching this, milking the line down towards this junction and pull as much core back into this outer braided cover as I have. Okay, so this is how much I need to cut off, and I'm going to make a mark. The next step after marking the line for me is to tape off this end of the core, because again, I'm going to make a cat toy out of this end. Next, we're going to take this snipped end, fluff it up a little bit, and then we're just going to cut 45 degrees off of this. We're going to cut 45 degrees off this end for another taper. I'm not a physicist or an engineer, but apparently making taper not only makes the transition smoother, it actually adds strength to the line. I'm going to pinch this off where this junction is, and I'm going to pull the inner core back up into the outer cover, and it disappears inside the cover. So there you go. It's now inside. Here's where we are so far. We have our slip knot, and we have all of this progress that we've made. The next step is to take the knot out of our cover. And just like we did with the core, we're going to fan out the outer cover and do a 45-degree cut to taper this. Okay, we have the outer cover, the tape's taken off, and I have this tapered, though it doesn't look like it, it's just a big mess. But now that it's tapered, we can pull it inside of the core now. I'm going to hold this junction again, and I'm going to pull the outer core over the top, the cover, and the cover now is inside the core. The last step, as you can imagine, is going to be taking the slip knot that we made earlier and pulling the core back inside the cover so that that's all inside the cover. It's important that you do this slowly so that you don't get a big ball up here in this part of your line. So here's how I do this. The last steps were pretty easy. I just took an endless loop of Dyneema and a soft shackle and wrapped it around our winch, or you could use anything that isn't going to move because you're going to pull on it really hard. And you start milking the cover slowly back over the core. So all that white core is going to disappear back into the cover. Do it gently at the first and just keep going, and eventually that white core is going to go inside. And then eventually you get to the point where you have to start pulling on it really hard. And for me, I had about a ½ inch little piece remaining that I couldn't get with my hands. So I found a big screwdriver, snapping it down, and that did the trick. All the white core went inside the cover and it looked fabulous. Where you have all that doubled up line inside gets a little bit stiff, but you can work it out. So to test, I took the loop, put it over the cleat. It worked great in a traditional style, and also through the middle. It also worked great. It was perfect size. I also whipped the ends because I like whipping rope. And I use red and green, port and starboard. Of course, why wouldn't you? The last thing I did was put a dart through each line, just 3 or 4 stitches right through the middle of the rope. Just a little piece of added security.